Hello. Is he asking me on a date?
Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt are interstellar voyagers woken prematurely in Passengers. That's coming up next on JO42 Reviews. Science fiction has entered the cultural mainstream in a big way in the last 50 years. What was once the province of outcasts, i.e. thinking people, is now a legitimate medium for mainstream cultural connection, but with that invariably comes some ham-fisted misfires, which unfortunately Passengers is an example of. Set in a distant future where humans are leaving an increasingly less habitable Earth for a new life on outer planets, Passengers stars Parks and Rec favorite Chris Pratt as Jim, an engineer who wakes up from suspended animation 30 years into a 120-year journey. When it's revealed that his sleep pod cannot be reactivated, he has to come to terms with the fact that he won't live to the end of the journey, and it's not long before ennui sets in. Jim falls in love with fellow traveler Aurora, played by Jennifer Lawrence, and thaws her out despite severe moral qualms. All goes well for the time being, with Jim allowing Aurora to believe that she too was awoken unexpectedly. It's here that the film is at its most enjoyable. Pratt and Lawrence have genuine chemistry, something that's readily apparent in their much-publicized off-camera rapport. The first half of the second act becomes a long montage of idealized courtship rituals. We can't help but enjoy the two leads as they laugh, flirt, and collapse elegantly into erotic embrace. But of course, Aurora inevitably learns that she was awakened by her newfound lover, and inevitably there's trouble in paradise that can only be resolved when the jilted lovers come together to avert certain disaster. To its credit, Passengers is a rare attempt at something new, a great holiday winter date movie that straddles the gap between romance and science fiction, two normally disparate genres, but rather than dig for anything new like what was seen in Spike Jonze's modern classic Her, we're instead treated to a film that can't decide if it wants to be The Martian or Sleepless in Seattle, so it threw both in a blender and added cheese. The essence of science fiction is to ask what if of a given social or technological development and build a story on those implications. Passengers just uses science fiction scenery as the backdrop for an otherwise unremarkable love story. Passengers is certainly charming on the surface, but the weak script strains over time. The dialogue is entirely stock, plucked from the archives of science fiction and romantic dramas of yesteryear to such a degree that it feels more like a by-the-numbers checklist of classic tropes rather than anything more deeply substantial. The film is enjoyable in the moment, but only because it's carried by two excellent actors that breathe life into dead dialogue and empty characters. It's not hard to fall in love with Jennifer Lawrence, just like it's not difficult to relate to Chris Pratt's macho yet sensitive personae. They play convincing every persons, and that's it. J-Law was scorching in Silver Linings Playbook, Winter's Bone, and of course The Hunger Games, and Pratt stole the show time and again on Parks and Rec. They're dynamic players with undeniable combined energy. Someone needs to put them together in something more substantial than this. The end result is what should be a perfect date movie, but falls apart the minute you start talking about it as you leave the theater. Upon reflection, you'll realize that the film breaks down into three wide arcs. She loves him, she hates him, they reconcile after going through a big adventure at the end. The important action points that drive the plot seem to only come after each of these three segments is ground to a halt. The ending is smarmy and predictable. Through it all, I was reminded of the Frank Zappa lyric, "All what we got here is American-made." It's a little bit cheesy, but it's nicely displayed. Thumbs down.
If you enjoyed this commentary, please help me continue to bring you more content by making a donation to patreon.com/JordanOwen42. Your contribution will help me turn this channel into a hub of libertarian pop culture discussion and current events commentary. Thank you for listening, and as always, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already.